Section 2. Robbery by the use of force upon things. This is the other kind of robbery. The person liable for robbery by the use of force upon things does not use violence against or intimidation of any person in taking personal property belonging to another with intent to gain. For otherwise, he will be liable under Article 294. Robbery by the use of force upon things is committed only when either 1. The offender entered a house or building by any of the means specified in Article 299 or Article 302. Or second, even if there was no entrance by any of those means, he broke a wardrobe, chest, or any other kind of locked or closed or sealed furniture or receptacle in the house or building, or he took it away to be broken or forced open outside. In any of such cases, the taking of personal property belonging to another with intent to gain from the broken furniture or receptacle, or the taking away of the locked or closed or sealed furniture or receptacle to be broken or forced open outside the house or building would be robbery. So, what are the two kinds of robbery with force upon things? 1. Robbery in an inhabited house or public building or edifice devoted to religious worship on Article 299. Second, robbery in an inhabited place or in a private building of Article 302. So one essential requisite of robbery with force on things under Articles 299 and 302 is that the malefactor should enter the building or dependency where the object to be taken is found. Article 299 and 302 clearly contemplate that the malefactor should enter the building. If the culprit did not enter the building, there would be no robbery with force upon things. That is on the case of People versus Haranilla. Article 299, robbery in an inhabited house or public building or edifice devoted to worship. Any armed person who shall commit robbery in an inhabited house of public building or edifice devoted to religious worship shall be punished by reclusion temporal if the value of the property taken shall exceed 50,000 pesos, and if A. The malefactors shall enter the house or building in which the robbery is committed by any of the following means. So there are 4. First, through an opening not intended for entrance or egress. Second, by breaking any wall, roof, or floor, or breaking any door or window. Third, by using false keys, picklocks, or similar tools. 4. By using any fictitious name or pretending the exercise of public authority. Or if B. The robbery be committed under any of the following circumstances. There are 2. First, by breaking off doors, wardrobes, chests, or any other kind of locked or sealed furniture or receptacle. 2. By taking such furniture or objects away to be broken or forced open outside the place of the robbery. So when the offenders do not carry arms and the value of the property taken exceeds 50,000 pesos, the penalty next lower in degree shall be imposed. The same rule shall be applied when the offenders are armed, but the value of the property taken does not exceed 50,000 pesos. So when said offenders do not carry arms and the value taken does not exceed 50,000 pesos, they shall suffer the penalty prescribed in the 2 next preceding paragraphs in its minimum period. If the robbery be committed in one of the dependency of an inhabited house, public building, or building dedicated to religious worship, the penalties next lower in degree than those prescribed in this article shall be imposed, as amended by RA number 18 and RA number 10951. Article 299 provides for two modes of committing robbery with force upon things. First, robbery with force upon things under subdivision A. So for the elements, that the offender entered A, an inhabited place, or B, public building, or C, edifice devoted to religious worship. Second, that the entrance was effected by any of the following means. There are four again. Through an opening not intended for entrance or egress. B, by breaking any wall, roof, or floor, or break any door or window. C, by using false keys, picklocks, or similar tools. D, by using any fictitious name or pretending the exercise of public authority. Third, that once inside the building, the offender took personal property belonging to another with intent to gain. So the offender must enter the house or building in which the robbery is committed. Thus, if the offender merely inserted his hand through an opening in the window or used a pole through the window to get the clothes inside the room, while the offender remained outside the house or building, the crime committed is theft, not robbery. So there must be evidence or the facts must show that the accused entered the dwelling, house, or building by any of the means enumerated in subdivision A of Article 299. In the case of U.S. versus Calotes, it was held that in the absence of evidence to show how the offenders effected an entrance into the convent where they took personal property, there can be no conviction under Article 508 of the Penal Code, now Article 299 of the Revised Penal Code. The reason for this ruling is that one of the elements of robbery with force upon things under Article 299 states that the entrance is effected by any of the means described in subdivision A of Article. Thus, where the manner of entrance into the house was not proven, the crime is theft and not robbery. So this ruling applies where both the outside door and the window of the house are open, so that it is possible that the accused might have passed through the door. But if at the time of the discovery of the loss of property in the house, the outside door remained locked and not destroyed, and a window was opened or broken open, there is a circumstantial evidence of unlawful entry, sufficient to establish robbery with force upon things. In entering the building, the offender must have an intention to take personal property. The accused, by means of a bola and screwdriver, began to open the door of the store, which also served as the dwelling of the Chinaman. So after loosening one of the bars of the door and becoming aware that the inmates therein had been awakened, the accused tried to escape, but were arrested by the policeman who had been watching them all the time. Held, it is not correct to convict the accused of attempted robbery. There is no evidence to show that the intention of the accused was to commit a robbery, or that they knew that they would find money inside the store. There still remains a sufficient indication of the existence of an intention different from that of committing a robbery. The crime committed is attempted trespass to dwelling under Article 280, paragraph 2. That is on the case of People versus Tayak. The place entered must be a house or building. So when the culprit enters the parked automobile through the window, the glass of which he broke. The crime is theft if personal property is taken therefrom, because the automobile is not a house or building. What inhabited house includes? Inhabited house is any shelter, ship, or vessel constituting the dwelling of one or more person, even though the inhabitants thereof are temporarily absent therefrom when the robbery is committed. Article 301. What about public building includes? Public building is every building owned by the government or belonging to a private person but used or rented by the government through temporarily, although temporarily unoccupied by the same. This is Article 301. The burnt edifice had not been inaugurated but was to be used as a public school. The evidence shows that said edifice had already been delivered by the contractor to the municipality of Biga. What makes a building public, it's not the inauguration for the purpose intended, but the fact of the state or any of its agencies having the title thereto. Robbery in a public building, where the defendant entered through the window of public high school building and took from the building two microphones, he was guilty of robbery under the first paragraph of Article 299. But if the building belonged to a private school, the crime is robbery under Article 302 because it is either an uninhabited place or a building other than those mentioned in the first paragraph of Article 299. Robbery in an edifice devoted to religious worship, where the accused, by means of a small lever or nail, forced open the top of the box of the poor box in the church, took the money therein contained and appropriated it to himself. The crime committed was robbery with force upon things committed in an edifice devoted to religious worship under paragraph B, number 1 of Article 299. And if the four means described in subdivision A of Article 299 must be resorted to by the offender to enter a house or building, not to get out. So note the opening sentence of subdivision A, which states, the malefactors shall enter the house or building in which the robbery is committed by any of the following means. 1. Through an opening not intended for entrance or egress. The window or a hole through the wall already in existence is not intended for entrance or egress. If the culprit enters the building through such opening and once inside, he takes personal property belonging to the occupants therein, the crime committed is robbery. In the case of People versus Co., the offenders enter the house of the offended party by passing through the window of the closet, and once inside, took the watch and money of the offended party. The offenders were convicted of robbery. But if the culprit had entered the house through an open door, and the owner, not knowing that the culprit was inside, closed and locked the door from the outside, and left, the culprit, after taking personal property in the house, went out through the window, it is only theft, not robbery. The whole body of culprit must be inside the building to constitute entering. So when the accused only introduced his hand through the broken glass of a show window, which he had broken in order to remove the watches therefrom, there is no robbery, because no entrance of his body was made. That is, on the case of People versus Adorno. Second, by breaking any wall roof, or floor, or breaking any door or window. Note the word breaking used in this means of entering the building. The force used in this means must be actual, as distinguished from that in the other means, which is only constructive form. The wall must be an outside wall. The wall broken must be an outside wall, not a wall between rooms in a house or building, because the breaking of the wall must be for the purpose of entering the house or building where the robbery is committed. But if a room is occupied by a person in his separate dwelling, the breaking of its inside wall may be may give rise to robbery. The outside door must be broken. Illustration. The accused pried the door out of the groove in which it ran and pushed it inward. Once outside, once inside, he took personal property belonging to the occupants of the store. Held. Paragraph A 2 of Article 299 of the RPC is as follows. The word the words clearly meant the breaking of a door or window and imply more than the mere forcing open of a door or window. If the defendant if the defendant had forced open a window and entered in that way, he would of course be guilty of robbery because of having entered the house through an opening not intended for entrance. But in the case at bar, the defendant entered by force or by forcing open the door by means of some instrument. It was neither alleged nor proved that the door was broken. The accused not having entered the store by any of the means specified in Article 299 of the RPC, the crime committed by him was theft. That is on the case of People versus Fernandez, where the door itself was intact, and the accused entered the store by removing the hinges or hooks to which the padlocks were attached, as well as the lock of the doorknob. The crime committed was simple theft. Where entrance is effected through a means intended for entrance or egress in order to qualify the crime as robbery, there must be an actual breaking or smashing in opening the door. Removing the hook or the contraption to which the padlock is placed to lock the door, or using an article to open the lock attached to the doorknob, is certainly not the breaking contemplated in Articles 299 and 302. That is on the case of People versus Leasing. The term door used in paragraph 2 of subdivision A of Article 299 refers to an outside door. It is mentioned as one of the means of entering the house or building, and it can be no other than the main or the back door, which must first be opened to effect entrance by that means. Third, by using false keys, picklocks, or similar tools. False keys are genuine keys stolen from the owner, or any keys other than those intended by the owner for the use in the lock forcibly opened by the offender. Article 305. Picklocks or similar tools are those specially adopted to the commission of the crime of robbery. See Article 304. The genuine key must be stolen, not taken by force or with intimidation from the owner. Thus, where the offenders intimidated the inmates then outside a house, requiring them to produce the key to the main door, Once in possession thereof, they used it to open the door and enter the house where they took personal property. The crime committed was robbery with intimidation of person under paragraph 5 of Article 294, not the robbery with force upon things by using a false key. That is on the case of US versus Kabangan. The false key or picklock must be used to enter the building. The use of false key or picklock refers to the mode of entering the house or building and not to the method of opening a trunk in the house or to the method of opening a drawer of the cabinet. It is only theft when the false key is used to open a wardrobe or locked receptacle or drawer or inside door. 1. The use of a false key in opening a wardrobe from which the offender took personal property cannot give rise to robbery, for as regards the wardrobes, chests, or any other kind of locked or sealed furniture or receptacle, Article 299b requires that the same be broken, not merely opened. 2. Opening the money drawer by using the stolen key is not robbery. That is on the case of People versus Fernandez. Third, if the false key or picklock was used to open an inside door, like the door of a room, and once inside, the culprit took therefrom personal property of another, it is only theft. But if the room is a separate dwelling, place of a person or a family, the use of false key to open its door may give rise to robbery. The use of a fictitious name or the act of pretending to exercise authority must be to enter the building. This takes place when the robbers represented themselves as detectives by displaying metal badges similar to those worn by regular police officers, and once inside, took the money of the offended party. That is on the case of People versus Urbano. Note, in the case of People versus Urbano, the facts show that the accused were already inside a store of a Chinaman when they represented themselves as detectives. It seems that using the fictitious names or pretending the exercise of public authority must be efficient cause of the opening by the offended part of the door of his house, the accused. Robbery with force upon things under subdivision B of Article 299. Elements. 1. That the offender is inside a dwelling, house, public building, or edifice devoted to religious worship, regardless of the circumstances under which he entered it. 2. That the offender takes personal property belonging to another with intent to gain under any of the following circumstances. A. By the breaking of doors, wardrobes, chests, or any other kind of locked or sealed furnitures or receptacle, or B. By taking such furniture or objects away to be broken or forced open outside the place of the robbery. Entrance into the building by any of the means mentioned in subdivision A of Article 299 is not required in robbery under subdivision B of the same article. It will be noted that the robbery defined in Article 299 is committed in two ways. As stated in subdivisions A and B, subdivisions A and B are separated by the words or if, indicating thereby that each subdivision is independent of the other. Hence, to commit the robbery defined in subdivision B of Article 299, it is not necessary that the offender should have entered the building by any of the means mentioned in subdivision A. Thus, a guest in the house of the offended party or a servant in that house may be guilty of this kind of robbery if he breaks open a locked wardrobe or chest inside a house, or if he takes it outside to be broken and once broken, takes therefrom personal property. Breaking the keyhole of the door of wardrobe, which is locked, is breaking a locked furniture. Article 299 subsection B1 speaks of, among others, the breaking of locked or sealed furniture or receptacle, not breaking of the lock. As argued by appellant, breaking or destroying the keyhole of the door of an aparador which was locked is virtually destroying locked furniture. True indeed, the RPC does not state as one of the modes of committing a robbery the destruction of a keyhole, but the destruction of a keyhole of an aparador is itself a destruction of a locked furniture, just as one who hurts his finger hurts his hand. That is on the case of People versus Tupas. So when a sealed box or receptacle is taken out of the house or building for the purpose of breaking it outside, it is not necessary that it is actually opened. A person who carries away a sealed box or receptacle for the purpose of breaking the same and taking out its content outside the place of robbery is guilty of consummated robbery, even though he does not succeed in opening the box. The phrase to be broken or forced open outside in subdivision B, paragraph 2 of Article 299 only indicates the objective element of the offense. So it is estafa or theft if the locked or sealed receptacle is not forced open in the building where it is kept or taken therefrom to be broken outside. So a person who opens by force a certain locked or sealed receptacle which has been confided into his custody and takes the money contained therein is guilty of estafa and not robbery, because the accused does not commit the act in the house of the offended party, or the accused does not take the receptacle out from the house of its owner, and it is theft when a locked receptacle is found on the side of a street and it is forcibly opened and the contents thereof are taken. The penalty for robbery with force upon things in inhabited house, public building, or edifice devoted to religious worship depends on the value of property taken and on whether or not offender is armed. So when the robbery is committed, 1. By armed person and the value of property taken exceeds 50,000, it is reclusion temporal. By an armed person and the value of the property exceeds 50,000 pesos, the penalty of the crime is prison mayor. By armed person, but the value of the property taken does not exceed 50,000, it is prison mayor. By an armed person and the value of the property taken does not exceed 50,000 pesos, the penalty is prison mayor minimum. And lastly, in a dependency of inhabited house, public building, or edifice devoted to religious worship, penalty next lower in degree than those specified above. So a bolo is not an arm when used by a servant to open a trunk in his master's house. Thus, a servant who used a ball in breaking open a trunk, then in the house of his master and took the money therefrom, was guilty of robbery committed by an armed person. That is in the case of US versus Saludo. So, weapon carried must not be used to intimidate. So, the weapon carried by the offender must not have been used to intimidate a person, for the reason that once the circumstance of intimidation enters in the commission of the crime, it is sufficient to remove the offense from Article 299 and place it with the purview of Article 294. So even those without arms are liable to the same penalty. The liability for carrying arms while robbing an inhabited house is extended to each of the offenders who take part in the robbery, even if some of them do not carry arms. Reason why heavier penalty is imposed for robbery in a dwelling house. Note that the penal law punishes more severely the robbery in a house used as a dwelling than that committed in uninhabited place, because of the possibility that inhabitants in the former might suffer bodily harm during the commission of the robbery. That is on the case of that is on the case of US versus Pajeta.